Good morning and welcome back to visual journaling for spiritual growth and stress relief. And today I have two activities. They're connected, but they are not the same thing. I am not an expert in either of them. I've explored them through some workshops and through just some research on my own. I've found them to be things that are interesting and meditative. I have not used them a lot, but I think that there's something that have helped me and could continue in use in my sketchbooks. So the tools today that I'll be using are a crayon, some colored pencils, possibly the pen and Sharpies. And the color choices should be about either what you're feeling right now or what you would like to be feeling. As we are exploring the marks and the emotions and feelings, you can be using the colors to help show that, or you can use the colors just as an expressive moment. This is a color that I really enjoy, I like, it makes me feel happy and comfortable, therefore I'm using it, okay? With colored pencils, you don't want them to be pointy, super sharp. They should not be needle sharp. They tend to break, they're very soft lead, so if you've got too sharp of a point, it's just gonna break, which can be frustrating, so. I took a workshop with Davis Art on the Mindful Studio, and these two activities were activities that keep coming back to me. And connected with that, I've been doing headspace mindfulness meditations. So using breathing and noticing techniques to calm the body, to regulate emotions. I am, again, by no means an expert and definitely not yet as regular a practitioner as I could be, but these are some techniques that help. So starting just with a few slow breaths, and chemically, if you're feeling some level of anxiety or nervousness, breathing in for a shorter breath in than your exhale can help to calm and change your body chemicals so that it's less of that anxiety and fight or flight, and bringing your body down into a more calm space and place emotionally. So just taking a deep breath in and then slow, long out. And then with that, I'm just going to do some regular breathing, and I'm going to choose a color for 1.5 minutes, so 90 seconds. And I'm going to make marks that sort of correspond with my breathing pattern. So it could be that your marks are going to be wavy, could be that they're going to be an up, down, sharp zigzag. It could be that your marks are unconnected from each other. They could be vertical and like a tally type mark. They could be horizontal. How you make your marks, I think, is up to you. It's about making some marks that help you connect with your body and your breathing. I'm going to change pencils as probably like line by line. So we'll see if I get through all three or not. So here we go. So from just looking at it and thinking, I'm noticing my marks are fairly consistent. I'm noticing my last one a little more stretched out. It looks like each one relaxed and stretched out a little bit further. So just sort of the marks of this moment. If I did this again later today, my marks might not be a zigzag. Then my marks later in the day might be a wave. My marks later might be the dashed line. So it could be interesting to just sit down periodically throughout the day. Maybe you make a page where you once an hour sit down and make marks and just sort of check on your breathing and see where the lines and colors and marks connect. I am going to do the next activity on this same page. And this is a body scan. And in the Mindful Studio exercises, we did a 3-minute drawing. And you can do this as a blind contour drawing where you're not looking at the paper at all. You can do this as a semi-blind contour drawing where you pick up your tool periodically and, or not pick up your tool, but sorry, look at your paper. In all of these contour, you want to keep the outline, you want to keep the tool connected with the page. More of a Lego person, right? It's basic shapes rather than being about making it realistic, right? You want to get about a feeling of how are you feeling right now? What are the marks that go with that? Where are you going to emphasize? So in the mindfulness meditations, from the Headspace app, we start at the top and scan downwards. In a lot of meditative practices, you can start with your feet as a grounding. So, and the connection to the ground. So in this demonstration, I will be starting at the top, at the head, just because that's where I'm comfortable with for today. Again, so you could do a series of these and explore different ways. What happens when you're starting with the grounding in your feet? What happens if you scan from the top down? So I'll narrate along my thought process as how I'm doing this, just to model how it might look. So you can draw along with me, so listening to the different parts as I'm talking about them, or you could choose to watch and then set it at your own timer or rewind this timer. Your choice on how you want to approach that. So that said, I will do a semi-blind contour. So my tool will stay in contact with the paper the whole time, but I will be having my eyes mostly closed as I draw, and I will peek every once in a while, just sort of to get an eye on where I am. I'm also going to use my fingers sort of help ground, space me. Okay, so again, it's not about making a Michelangelo with everything in proportion and all of the muscles. It's only 3 minutes. It's only a little Lego stick person. Okay, so breath in, breath out, and I'll start the timer. And I'm starting at the top. And it's morning, and I've had some coffee. So I'm mostly awake. My sinuses are a little bit sinusy, so my nose here is getting some attention. Breathing has opened up my throat a bit. And I'm going to use this as a mirror. So this is my right shoulder across from me that feels pretty strong this morning. The elbow and the hand. Fingers feel good, ready to go. I'm going to come across into these right ribs. They've been giving me issues since I dislocated the one. And coming back over to the left side, where that left shoulder feels creaky this morning, achy. I'm aware of it. So I'm just going to emphasize that. The left hand, however, feels helpful. Coming down, hello belly button. And the left hip, the left side, the left hip, just, we're still working on that. Into the knee. Knees feel good today. And the right leg feels good. And I'm going to come back up and just thinking about lungs and breathing today. So I'm going to put some lungs in underneath there. It's a little emphasis. And then I'm going to come back over and give some attention to that left shoulder. Maybe strengthen it. And some intestines as the timer stops. So that is a respiratory breathing and a body scan to get started. So for the second activity, connected with sort of where are you thinking, where are you feeling, and I'm going to give us a little extra light here because I've realized that it's kind of dark. Something that I had looked at a number of years ago, but didn't spend a lot of time with. And then recently a colleague did a workshop on neurographic art for our Art Education Association. And I thought, oh yeah, I really enjoyed that. From a website, and I will link to this website, Neurographics is a way of drawing that recreates the outer from the inner. So it's a process that was discovered and developed by a Russian psychologist and creativity entrepreneur. And his quote is, "Creative method of transforming the world, author's method. An interdisciplinary practice that allows you to make necessary personal changes, reliably remove restrictions, and successfully stimulate a new and desired reality." And I'm going to attempt to pronounce his name. It's Pavel Pizkarov. I did not take Russian, so I don't know for sure if that's the correct pronunciation. So with neurographic art, you are using processes to make marks that help you focus and meditate. So and using, I lost my page here. Using then these marks to just focus your intent, to think about what you're doing in a moment and taking that. So really, really simplifying. And I'm going to use the Sharpie. And I've tested a page, and so I know this Sharpie is not going to bleed through, but I have put a paper, scrap paper underneath. So with this, I'm going to start with sort of a neurographic meditative line that is going to start on one side of the page. It's going to start on an edge of the page and end on an edge of the page. And it's sort of an interpretive, impromptu type of line, okay? And it could be a line that squiggles across just like that. One demonstration I saw, she said she compared it to being like a river, right? Your line could have a little more energy and action to it, depending on how you're feeling. And then I'm going to just add one more line that's sort of just a vertical to break some of my spaces, bigger spaces up here a little bit. And I lied. I'm going to add another one. So once I've got that, and I'm sort of at this time thinking, and since I'm thinking about calming and breaths, I'm sort of got that in my head. You might choose something else to meditate or think on as you're working and making marks. Or you could allow your marks to, as you're making marks, for your brain to just sort of start to interpret and think. So the next step that I'm going to do is find all the intersections, all the places where it connects. And I'm just going to take the sharp point off of them and just sort of round out all those corners. Now, when I was originally looking at neurographic art, I was looking at it because I had an interest in art therapy. I do not have a degree in art therapy. I still have an interest, and neurographic art could theoretically be used in an art therapy practice with a person who's going to then help you interpret marks, or just as a mindfulness. But there is a whole movement of neurographic art that is art inspired by, but not intended to be therapy. So it's meant to create artworks. It's meant to allow you to be meditative and go from there. And in the weeks following the demonstration on our Art Education Association from the tutorial, it's really been kind of cool to see how other colleagues are using this process for themselves, and how people are taking it and interpreting it. So it's something that you could definitely be like, ooh, I like this part, but I don't like that part. Or I like this, but what if I did this as well, right? So it's in your journal, and you can take it where you want to take it. And I'm also thickening some of the lines as I go, just for a visual. Thickening the lines could also be a point where you're like, okay, this is going to be where I'm thinking about a certain person who's on my mind. So I'm going to just, and it could become a prayer. You could be thickening a line and thinking about a task that you're dreading doing, and as you thicken this line, you say, okay, I know that I don't like going to the dentist, and I've put off calling the dentist, but it's okay. And when I hit that point where I'm like, all right, now I'm going to put down my pen and I'm going to call the dentist before I get distracted. So filling in, connecting, and then because this is for you, you could decide, are these enough spaces? Do I want to make some spaces smaller? I've seen some people making on some tutorials where the instructor is having you use an animal, so creating the silhouette of an animal and then doing these sort of interpretive lines, intuitive lines through the animal or the shape. I've seen some people adding textures and patterns inside. So it's all about what works for you. So then adding color. Your choice of coloring techniques here. The colored pencils. For some people, this could be like a coloring book, right? Coloring in a coloring book can be very therapeutic. Colored pencils, you get a lot of control. So I can take the time here inside this space to just think about this shape. And then I can start to use a little bit of value. So I'm pressing a little bit harder here to make it a little bit darker around the edges, and then intentionally making this shape less flat. I could do some color blending and mixing. We played with the water-soluble markers. So you have an idea of how your markers work on your paper with water. So just pick one. They're all good brushes. Don't let any brush feel sad. I would probably choose one technique or one coloring tool for the whole page, right? I probably, if I were doing this for a personal meditation process, I probably wouldn't start playing with multiple, just because that gets a little distracting, right? Because then I'm focused on the techniques, and rather than focusing on the marks and interpreting the marks. So, but just so you can see, I could just choose to color solid with markers. I could go back in, and once it's dry and put patterns over it, I could just fill with patterns. And patterns that are satisfying to me in this moment. as I'm connecting things. And I think I'd probably want to make this a lot finer, more hatching rather than pattern. So we have Neurographic Art. We have respiratory marks and body scan. So these are just a few more things that you can play with and explore in your journal this week. I encourage you to see what parts of these connect with you in what way. You know, did you really enjoy the body scan and you're going to do a series? Maybe your body scan is going to be your drawing, or maybe your neuro